Good evening, YouTube. It is gone 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday the 17th of May, and I've just started editing together my video footage from yesterday's VEDA project. Unfortunately, my phone, being the clever thing that it is, has managed to delete 2 of the takes that I did earlier, and so there will be a couple of placeholder graphics, just to let you know what was said in those gaps. My apologies, but I'm not going to reshoot the entire video, and I think it was good enough that just with those placeholders it will stand good credit. So, without further ado, here's what I shot earlier. Hello YouTube, it is Friday the 16th of May, and this is day 28 of my VEDA project. Now, where normally I would be doing a walk and talk for today, I've decided to do a sit and chat instead. I've been out this afternoon with the inestimable Sam Burns. Say hello, Sam.
Hello, Sam.
And we have been filming a little something in preparation for day 30 as my finale to the VEDA project, but more of that in a couple of days' time. Now, for those of you who've been paying attention and following along, you will have noticed that I've been away for the last couple of days. That's because I was feeling a little under the weather with headache and a bit of a temperature, but I am back now and feeling much better, thank you very much. So today we return to our scheduled programming, and it is the 4th film on my 5 significant films list. And today there is no debate, there is no guessing, there is no trying to work out which of 2 films I'm going to go for. I know exactly which film I'm choosing. Now, the story of this film begins in 1996, when Darren Smith and Terence Zdunich had a friend who was going through some financial difficulties and was having a lot of his property repossessed and his house foreclosed upon. Darren and Terence began to riff on ideas of repossession and so on, and came up with the idea of a future where body organs could be repossessed in a similar way if you failed to make your repayments. About a grave robber who is trying to escape the clutches of one of these repo men. Audience response to the play was very good, and so they decided to expand out the story of the other characters in the world, and later that year they did a full stage version of the new play, which was directed by a young man named Darren Lynn Bousman. Those of you who are paying attention may remember that Darren featured in my last video as one of the directors of the Saw films, and I did tell you that he would be appearing yet again. Now, having directed the stage version, Bousman had a vision for turning it into a full-length feature film, but Darren Smith and Terence Zdunich wanted to do some editing to it and extrapolating out, and between 2002-2005 they made significant changes to the play. Fast forward a couple of years on from 2002, and Darren Lynn Bousman is touting around a script that he's written called The Desperate to various studios trying to get it made. One of the companies that he shows it to is Lionsgate, who say, "This is really good and we'd like to make it, but could you do a few changes to it and turn it into the sequel that we need for the Saw franchise?" And sure enough, that film became Saw 2. After the success of Saw 2, Lionsgate turned to Bousman and said, "What would you like to do next?" And Bousman said, "Well, there's this musical theatre project that I'd really like to turn into a film." And they said, "No chance, that'll never sell." So Bousman agreed to do Saw 3 for the company instead. And when that was successfully completed and they turned to him and said, "What would you like to do next?" he said, "I'd really like to do this feature film based on a musical theatre project." And they still said no. But Bousman was determined to get this film made, and so with his own money and with the help of some friends from the Saw cast and other contacts that he had, he made a 10-minute short film based on the premise. Showing this film to Lionsgate, they finally saw what his vision was, and they agreed to let him make it, and gave him $8.5 million to do so. Because he had time while the main cast were doing their singing for the soundtrack recording, he agreed to direct Saw 4, thereby completing his trilogy within that franchise. Now, Bousman was cunning, because he realised that he had to make that $8.5 million stretch as far as he could. He used some of his production budget within Saw 4 to build sets which he could use in both films. He was even cheekier than that, though. He took footage within his filming of Saw 4 which he knew he would use in the final product for his musical film instead. Now, Repo is a film which shows its budgetary limitations on the screen. While shooting, they were told, for example, that they could only have 20 extras for the production. So you see a lot of the same faces over and over again in the background. And in some places, they have to wear masks to hide the fact that they are the same person. But there are also incredibly creative ways that they get around these budgetary limitations. For example, anytime you get into the backstory and see a grander picture of the city at large, it's done through animatics and animated storyboards and 3D graphics. It's given an intentional artistic or cell animation style as well, which adds to the overall tone of the film. But for me, the reason why it's on my significant films list is the determination of the director, Darren Lynn Bousman, to get it made. He waited for 4 years to see his project come to fruition. He kept on badgering the studios to get it made. He even used his own money to create a short film version first to show them how it was going to work. The dedication he had to getting his vision on the screen is inspirational to me, and that's why it's on my significant films list. So, we now have 4 films on my significant films list. Dark Crystal by Jim Henson, Nightbreed by Clive Barker, Saw by James Wan and Lee Whannell, and Repo the Genetic Opera by Darren Lynn Bousman, Darren Smith and Terence Zajunic. Tomorrow we'll see the final film on my 5 significant films list, and will be the penultimate video of my VEDA blogs. I will see you tomorrow. Until then, stay safe, be well, bye for now.